Hey guys, so I wanted to release a video. It's going to be a little bit different in style than some of my previous videos. It'll be more of like a VOD. But I want to talk with you guys about my experience jumping back into retail WoW and kind of what that was all about. Just to tell you a brief history of me playing WoW, I started in college at the end of BC, and a friend introduced me to the game, and I played all the way through Wrath of the Lich King and got hooked. I took some breaks in between certain expansions. So I didn't play any of Mists of Pandaria, and I didn't play any of Legion. So the last expansion that I played was Warlords of Draenor. And most of my joy from playing this game comes from the PvE content. Whenever I was in Wrath of the Lich King and whenever I was playing Cataclysm and all the other expansions, I just really enjoyed raiding. I enjoyed dungeons. I enjoyed gearing up my character. The launch of an expansion was my favorite part. Like rushing to level and then jumping into the dungeons and gearing out my character for a raid was the most fun I've had playing World of Warcraft. And doing that with my friends, obviously. So that's kind of my history of playing the game. And I ended up quitting after Warlords of Draenor, and then eventually came back. And I just tried out BFA. The reason that I came back was Classic was released. I wasn't going to play Classic, but a friend of mine talked me into it, and I didn't have a game I was playing at the time, so I jumped into it and really loved it. I loved the nostalgia of playing the game again the way that I used to play it, and there was a lot of elements there that I enjoyed. But as soon as I hit the end game content, I got kind of bored. I felt like the rating was very easy and boring. I felt like the PvP rank grind just wasn't for me. Just didn't seem fun. It just was too grindy for me. So I tried out retail again. And I know a lot of the negative things people have said about BFA, but I wanted to do a quick VOD to just tell you guys like what my experience was jumping back into retail WoW and what my thoughts are as a returning player. So I'll try and keep this brief. The first thing that I experienced was the class changes. I used to play Rogue and Boomkin the most. Those are my two main specs and classes. And since I didn't play Legion, I guess they overhauled those at least Rogue during the Legion expansion. So when I jumped back into the game, I saw there was a new spec called Outlaw, which was great. I used to play Assassination a lot and Subtlety a lot and Combat. And so the fact they introduced this new spec was awesome because it was almost like a whole new game. I got to relearn a new rotation. I got to relearn the spec. I got to experiencing leveling up. I kind of got to retrain myself with Assassination, which is somewhat similar, but still very refreshing. They've added some new abilities. They've added a lot of things to the class that I loved, which is Rogue, and still love. And I have really enjoyed it. So that was a huge plus, and I'm excited to jump back in and play some other classes and see if they've made any additional changes to them as well. But from what I experienced, it was a lot of fun. Just relearning all of that stuff. It felt like a whole new game to me. From there, the leveling experience that I had, I really enjoyed the leveling experience in Legion. I felt like the questing and the storytelling during those quests was very immersive. I enjoyed, going from zone to zone and meeting the new races and factions and getting like a feel for what was going on in that territory and how they were fighting against the Burning Legion. And I thought that was great, and I really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed leveling in BFA too. I really enjoyed the storyline behind the Zandalari trolls and fighting against Gahoon and meeting all the different races and helping them and questing, and the storytelling they did in both these expansions, in Legion and in BFA, was fantastic. I jumped in during the whole World of Warcraft 15-year anniversary thing, so I had 10% extra XP. So when I finished, questing in Zandalar, I was 120. So I don't know like how that whole flow was supposed to work and how it went when BFA just initially launched. But when I hit 120, I had just finished the storyline for all of Zandalar. So from there, it was like, now I have to do more quests with the war campaign. And I went and did Nazjatar, and I went and did Mechagon and was introduced to all these different areas. And I will say that it was a little disheartening to be like, oh, you're 120. Since I love endgame content so much, I felt like it was a little confusing to like have all this additional stuff I was required to do. So I felt like that was a little weird. I will say my one experience from BFA so far is that it has seemed very focused on questing. You have, if you want to get Pathfinder, you have to gain reputation through doing daily quests and world quests. And if you want, to get some more essences for your neck piece, you have to level, you know, get the reputation from certain places in order to do and get those essences. Like it just was a lot. Like it's a lot to jump into as a returning player. You have to do PvP. You have to grind PvP for blood of the enemy. Like there's just so much that it's like, man, like I don't really want to do all this because I just want to experience the part of the game that I enjoy, which is dungeons and raiding. Like that's what I love to do. So I did feel like when I hit endgame in BFA, it was just very confusing. There was just a lot I had to get acquainted with, and I didn't know what to do first. I wanted Pathfinder, so I started doing a bunch of world quests, but I also wanted to do the dungeons and gear my character up, so I started doing dungeons, and I just felt very torn. Even with an hour or an hour or two a day, it was a lot of content to have to grind for someone trying to jump back into the game later on in an expansion. So there's a huge like time gate there that I think is challenging for returning players to jump back into the game. I feel like they should have made that easier for an expansion that has had, some notable criticism to it. I think they could have made it easier for players to jump back in and return and try the game out. Because I felt like 8.3 has been really great. I love the whole Horrific Visions thing and all of that, but I'm still trying to get caught up from 8.2. So, I feel torn jumping into content. But anyway, so from there, if I had to add one change to the game, I feel like with reputations and daily quests, I think if they're going to put things that are essential to PvE content, they shouldn't do it through reputation. Reputation should be like recipes, like maybe at the beginning of expansion offering certain epic pieces of gear for reputation could, I don't necessarily have any problem with that. Maybe top end raiders would hate that, but I feel like there's nothing wrong with being like, oh, you can buy this epic piece of loot from this, reputation vendor if you hit exalted or revered or whatever, like whatever, however they want to set that, like. So I don't know, but it just seemed like it was everything was very time gated. So recipes, gear, mounts, aesthetic things, like that's fine. Like you should gems, whatever. Like you should be able to, reputation serves a purpose, but you shouldn't have to just immediately jump into questing, in order to get caught up so you can experience part of the end game. Which Azurite essences for your neck piece are so strong that if you don't have them, you are irrelevant. So for them to put that and time gate that with reputation is literally impossible for people trying to return to the game. So if they want to get players back, they should definitely make that easier and continue to make that easier. Because I've been playing the game now for almost 2 months, and I still only have like 4 or 5 essences, and they're not even max level, and they're not the ones that are beneficial for what I want to do in the game. So at some point I'm going to have to go do some PvP and rank up my blood of the enemy because I really enjoy doing dungeons. And as a rogue, blood of the enemy is really great for Mythic Plus dungeons. So, I'm kind of stuck now trying to do that and experience part of the game that I enjoy experiencing. So that was just my thoughts and my opinion on that. I really do enjoy world quests, though. I enjoy, running around the map and doing world quests and killing elites. I think that's a fun element to the game. So I don't know how that fits into the game, but I hope they continue to include that in future expansions because I really did enjoy that. I think it does kind of feel epic at times, especially when you have to group up with people. I think it's a neat way to do that and to experience the game. It's way more fun than what it used to be, which is garrison grind or just running around doing dailies in a zone. Like I don't enjoy that, but I really do enjoy world quests and killing elites. I think that's kind of fun. So I hope they continue to include that. And the fact that it gears you up and scales with your character, I think is awesome as well. I think maybe it's a little too easy to get gear from that. I think you should have to do dungeons or some kind of content in order to get gear. Like I think the comparison between jumping in and getting a 415 item level and a level 400 item level from doing a mythic dungeon, the difficulties there don't line up. one is way easier than the other one. So it's kind of like, why? You know what I mean? Like, at least make them of equal difficulty. So maybe you only get gear from epic level world quests. I don't know. But at this point, it does feel a little confusing. Um, I really love dungeons. That's the part of the game that I love the most. And raiding. I love dungeons and raiding. So, when I jump back in and they had all these different kinds of levels of dungeons, I just loved learning all 10, 11, 12 dungeons, and then the fact that they added Mythic Plus. Mythic Plus is probably the main reason I came back to the game. When I saw it, being played by some streamers, I was super hyped to jump back in and try that out, because it's kind of like, hey, if you used to be a Mythic Raider or you enjoy heroic raiding or whatever, and you want to experience difficult PvE content but on a very casual schedule, Mythic Plus Dungeons is what you should do. It's so accessible. It's easy to find. I mean, for me, it hasn't been too difficult to find groups for. It's endless content. I love the affixes. I love how it works. I love the system, and I love that I get rewarded for it in gear. So that was what brought me back. I felt like Dungeons and the Mythic Plus experience looked like a lot of fun. And so I wanted to try that out and I wanted to learn it. And so far, I've really enjoyed it. So I think that's a huge benefit to the game and a huge addition to the game. And I hope that continues to be a focus in future expansions. In terms of raiding and PvP, I haven't actually done any raiding and PvP. I feel like LFR and all that, like I used to do, I was in a heroic mythic raiding guild, and I just don't have time for that right now in my life. But from what I've seen, it looks like the raids are top notch. It looks like a lot of the mechanics are fun. The Race to World First that just finished was awesome. There was a lot of production around it. There was a lot of hype around it. So it seems like the scene is doing well. I just feel like there's a lot of negative things that, kind of cursed BFA. I felt like the way that gearing works with dungeons, I don't necessarily love that it's like by, you finish a dungeon and then you get one piece of loot for that dungeon and it's random. Like, I don't love the gearing, I don't love how that works. I feel like they could do things a little bit better with gearing. I really preferred like static loot tables. Is that the right term? Maybe static loot tables where you like know, hey, this boss drops this piece of loot. And like I get they can't do that for dungeons. Like that makes more sense for a rating. But there just are certain things they've changed with gearing that they're trying too much. It almost seems like they're just taking a handful of ideas, throwing it into the game and seeing what sticks, and I don't like it. I don't mind the idea of something proccing a socket, but it is very frustrating grinding a bunch of stuff and not getting loot. Like you want to have more control over gearing your character and choosing which gear you can get. Benthic gearing seems stupid to me. A lot of the different stuff they did with gearing just seems really dumb. I don't enjoy what they did, with that aspect of gearing. I really miss tier sets. I really miss just being in control of gearing your character and choosing which pieces of gear you should use. Is really nice. So the randomness of how you get gear just is kind of annoying. So, but yeah, I mean, that's been my experience from the game so far. I've really enjoyed it. Overall, it's been a fantastic experience. So I'm looking forward to continuing, to grind the game, and I'm really looking forward to Shadowlands. But yeah, these are just my basic thoughts on my return to BFA since having not played since Warlords of Draenor, and I'm really enjoying myself. So yeah, I hope you guys are too. If you guys like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to see more content like this, follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/themontymole. Thanks guys. Have a great week.